help me welcome again Dr. Martin Pepper.
Thank you. So let's switch.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you take that? Sorry. Sorry, we have to switch to my laptop because I have a little video to play. Cool. So, big disclaimer here. I am not a business person. I work in the College of Engineering, and I reached out because I've done some pretty kind of crazy things, made my biggest dreams come true, and reached out to basically, hopefully, inspire you guys to do the same. And I really looked deep within what I've done, and I realized it's my network. I've built kind of a really weird, unorthodox network. I was not part of any groups or professional systems, and so working with everybody here, they said that's probably something that you guys could benefit the most from. But if you've heard stuff before, my apologies. I don't know what you guys have gone through in the business school or other experiences. So there might be some repetition. My goal, though, is to make this extremely unique. Are we ready? All right. So you guys all have a sheet of paper and something to write on in front of you. The idea is just tear it in half. We got two little things we're going to try and do later. Folks that are just arriving, feel free to come up towards the front. So we're going to do some challenges a little bit later, but first I wanted to kind of go through kind of what I've done to make my dreams come true. And I call it Gone Rogue, because I don't know if this has been talked about, published, or done, but hopefully you guys can glean a lot of information from this for your own future success. And I have to put a big warning here. I'm going to be telling you stories. I've done some really dumb stuff in life. You're going to hear some of these. Please don't attempt these things. It's an old era, and I've done some things that I pulled off just because of what I've done in the past with swimming or other things. So this is kind of tongue-in-cheek, but you'll hear some stories and go, wow, this guy's kind of nuts. So that's part of my goal. Big question for you guys. I hope we can kind of have a discussion here and throw it back and forth, but do you guys have kind of a mantra that you live with? Is there something that you guys remind yourself as you're going through life? Or almost like a goal or a higher thing that you're trying to attain? Would you guys like to hear mine? My mantra is experience everything. So if I'm going into something and it looks like crazy fun, I want to experience it. If it looks like crazy suffering, I want to experience it. And I tell people stories and they're like, why would you submit your body to that? And I'm like, my mantra, experience everything. I think we're here to just experience, right? And so I'm going to do everything I can to, like, on my deathbed, just be giggling, going, wow, I cannot believe I pulled that off. Or I cannot believe I constructed a group of friends and network to basically make the impossible happen. So that's my mantra. And hopefully by the end of our talk, we can get you guys thinking about a mantra, build these dreams, and maybe construct what you can to get towards that. So that's my mantra. Old Einstein even knew that, right? Like, us as individuals, everything is our own experience, right? We don't learn it. We definitely don't learn it on Instagram, right? Our era now is everybody staring at their phone, but we really can't or learn anything until we personally experienced it. And I've learned, both in sports and learning and my crazy adventures, the highs, they're pretty good, but after a big high or success, I'm like, meh. It's the lows that I learn the most from. You know, I went through some real hardships. I went through like anxiety attacks. I went through mental and physical exhaustion. And when I look back on those, I'm like, wow, that was the best lesson I could have ever had in life. So my challenge is actually throw myself into more hardships. What can I learn? What networks can I build out of that, you know? Because once you get that, you get kind of a wisdom in life. So I'm going to kind of show you some things that I've done in that goal. So I'm going to kind of narrate this. So I basically threw together stuff I'd done, and I got picked up by Discovery Channel. And so I had my own series. It was called How the Earth Worked. So making things explode in Iceland, doing climate change in BC, Indonesia collecting sulfur. This isn't very exotic. Got into swimming. Did some free diving in Indonesia. Got my own airplane. Almost crashed that a couple times. Had kids, sold the airplane. But then we did this series. This was probably one of the craziest times. They rented this guy with an extreme off-road. He drag races vertically up volcanoes. He was $3,000 an hour. And literally right after I shook his hand, you'll see in a minute, we went shooting up a volcano and we high-centered and it slipped the disc and I went full paralyzation. So the left half of my body on fire, drooped, couldn't move. And I'm smacking him like, stop! Like full like mouth hang. And so he had to get off the rock. We hit something, my back slipped better, and I was good. And he's like, no, we're taking you down. We're going to helivac you out of here. I'm like, no, we're good. Let's finish the show. So just to show you kind of how far we could take it. So, and he had the same issue. He had done the same thing being the driver. He had fully given himself a concussion. So awesome experience, right? Craziest lows. I got to go in a uranium mine, drill out, inject explosives, and then we went slightly down the shaft and blew out the whole cave. And so you can see here, the shock wave sends us back a bit. Another crazy experience, very scary. But then they also sent us all over the world. My joke was they were going to either kill me physically or kill me with jet lag. Then one professor in my network that I kept in touch with, and I'll tell you how I kind of do that. I'm always sending everybody like, hey, check this out. Hey, this is really cool. He said, I've got a lot of money. I need to spend it. If I give you a credit card and an unlimited budget, can you collect sand from every river in the world? And he's like, I need somebody adventurous and kind of stupid, and you're the perfect person. And so this was me. He paid for the motorcycle, paid for my trip down, and I basically did South America collecting sand from every river. And then it got picked up by a French documentary. So you can see here, I designed the bike in my shop. That's the southern tip of Patagonia on ice. This is a river in Ecuador. Bike had everything on it, spare tires, fuel, and a lot of crazy stunts, getting stuck in ditches, hanging out with the locals. And everything, all my samples, I gold panned down into just this little, about the size of your thumb. I'd wrap it in a little Ziploc baggie and hide it in my dirtiest underwear. And when customs went digging through my laundry, I'd be like, whoa! And then they quickly go, okay, move on. So they never knew I was collecting samples for my Ph.D. But then because of that motorcycle trip, History Channel picked me up and said, we want you to take a motorcycle, we'll buy you a BMW, and we want you to circumnavigate the Mediterranean. We want you to look for Atlantis. I was like, sounds great. So we basically traveled everywhere, all the way over to Egypt. This, I'm going over the different petroglyphs in Egypt. So living the dream, talking about the geology on the motorcycle. And everything was like, I could pitch it, and these movie channels would be like, nobody's done that. Let's try it out. Then I put together a little promo of stuff I did in the shop, got picked up by Mythbusters. So in Mythbusters, we were on a series, it was a challenge, 8 shows, 8 challenges, and that's a water heater. You can do that with your water heat at home. All you have to do is remove the safety valve and the thermostat and plug it back in, and it'll do that. They're designed to shoot themselves out the roof of your house instead of kill everybody in the house. And we have a person strapped to the top of that. So a dummy at the weight of a normal person. Me being a science nerd made the head, the human head weight. I was like, I want to see if a person could even keep their head on their body when we launch this thing. And look at that, the head got blown off. So interesting side experiment. In this, I used my science, and I built everything. And the problem was I actually got canceled. I found out later by the executive producers that everything you make runs perfectly. It looks like it was purchased. In fact, when we looked for a needle in a haystack, it not only separated the needle, it separated all the wheat. And so I got fired because they're like, there's no drama. We need drama. We need things breaking. We need people arguing. So season of that, got fired on live TV. That was pretty painful in front of millions. Bought a 6x6 on an auction and then turned that into a field vehicle and then started renting that out. So professors got word that if you hire Marty, he can get you in the middle of nowhere with 30 kids, 40 kids. So there was a full camp where during the day we had shade. The cook had a place to cook for all 30 people. And then at night, solar-powered electrics. All the students could basically study and get everything done. So met another kind of impossible challenge, taking big risks. And it was extremely remote. So some of the highest pinnacles across the whole western US. So here you can see the whole group on that tip right up there. People heard about that and said, hey, we want you to go to Tibet. We want you basically as a glorified lifeguard. So hiked through Mongolia, drove across the transect in China all the way up into Tibet. This poor Tibetan horse is like, get this fat bastard off me. But we literally slept on frozen lakes. This one was kind of strange. We had these nuns that came out because they'd never seen anybody crazy enough to sleep on a frozen lake. So they came out in droves. We had about 30 of them. They were curious about everything. The camera, the tent, they'd never seen anybody sleep on ice before. So like a good American, we put them to work. So we had them digging the holes and helping us get the mud out. So we were collecting calcite mud. Somebody dropped the implement in, so I had to dive down under the ice to get back our digging tool. And they thought I was committing suicide. So get down to the bottom, find our little breaker bar. So now I have a camera in one hand, a breaker bar in the other, and I lose the guide rope to find the hole. And so now I'm trying to find the hole. So stuck under the ice, find the hole, and get out and get my breath. This was at 15,000 feet, so really high altitude, really hard to hold your breath. And then we got stuck in a lightning storm. We're the highest thing on the lake, and the lightning is hitting all around us. So the only thing we can do is lay as flat as we can on the ice and try and get the lightning to pass. So awesome experiences. This was this summer. I met a guy at Costco, said, hey, do you want to sail to Pompeii, Micronesia? So we hopped aboard 3,100 miles a couple months ago. This guy's 93 years old, and he was the captain of the boat. He built that boat in his 70s. And so he's up there fixing the main lines. Then last year, get this crazy email from this random policeman in France. Oh, sorry. Random email in France. And he says, I know the whole history of your great uncle. And I was like, what? I have a great uncle? And he said, yes. This guy right down here was my great uncle. He flew these P-38s. And he said, you don't know me, but I know this whole history. And if you come to France, you can sleep along the river, the Seine River, and I will show you where his plane crashed. You get to interview the 94-year-old lady that actually witnessed the plane crash, and her family helped drag him out of the wreckage. And most people would be like, I don't know this guy, he's strange. Why would I do that? So flew there, camped along the Seine River, in the wineries. That's where my uncle's plane crashed. That's the hole he put in the building. And the people are like, can we fill the hole? I'm like, 85 years? Yeah, I would love it. And then they had a ceremony. And so basically having the network, contacting these people, staying in touch. There's pieces of my uncle's plane. There was a handle he was using when he crashed. And they actually named a roundabout after him. So, but I think most people will be like, this guy's weird, he's strange, I want nothing to do with this guy. No, thank you. But jumped at the chance. That's the woman that was actually there to help pull him out of the wreckage 80 some years ago. We also hired a plane and we flew his last mission. And then we flew to the point where we could fly over the house that he got shot down in. So this was where he came into the valley, rounded those peaks, and then right after those peaks got shot down right there. So my point with all this, I hope you don't take it as bragging, but I'm just showing you that if you have a mantra, you have a goal, you have something you're shooting towards, and you build a strong network, you can make crazy happen, right? And that's what I wanted. I wanted experiences. And it's still going on, and I'll talk about a little bit of the crazy things I'm planning to do next. But the challenge for you guys now, as you're starting your college career and your future business careers, is if you find those secret allies, you're building this network for life, right? So I'm going to tell you some of the things I've learned as I've built up my network. Things I'm working on right now, I've got this crazy idea of a backpack catamaran. I want to circumnavigate islands, living off of just spearfishing and air rifle hunting. So there's that. Working on bush plane, I want to do some exploration up in the highlands of the mainland. And then I've got ideas around products, and I'm writing some screenplays. So that's weird stuff I'm working on, but my network is vast, and I don't want to go into depth. This is what I want you guys to start thinking on paper. But I have some really weird people from this guy, and I talk about what they can do. So he does asset protection for wealthy. When I go to a party with Mikey, I meet billionaires, I meet Russian mafia, I meet self-proclaimed witches, and I meet SEAL team and people from Congress. So if I have a really strange need, I always talk to Mikey. Already saved my life on that sailboat trip this summer. There was a time where I was like, hey, things don't feel right. The wind's doing weird stuff. And he was like, head north now. And there was like a small microburst, almost like a hurricane. So think about your network and think about gaps, right? Like what in your network are you the worst at? and you don't have confidants that are going to help cover you in that. So, you know, even now that I want to do movies, I have this friend Sarah that I've worked with. She's British. She's got connections. She worked with Will Ferrell and all these other people. Seth is a performance coach. He's working with the guy that just produced Netflix's most productive movie on earth. So I have this network. My biggest gaps, though, with what you just saw, I want to do, I don't have anybody that can do apps. I don't have anybody that can do programming. So that's what I'm trying to do to fill my network. But we're going to work on this towards the end of this. But the big thing I think you guys got to all ask yourself is what weird or unique things can you offer, right? So I was that nerdy kid at home. I was always in the garage tinkering. I was the loser in high school. I was the loser in college. But I realized now that the time I spent learning my stuff, the welding, the mechanics, the construction, being that weird guy that can do logistics are now superpowers, right? So I hope you guys are coming out of that, what I call the cool kid phase, right? Where you want to fit in. Now you don't want to fit in, right? Because now people look out for me. Like I literally got a job offer. Would you start a geotech company in Mongolia? You know, a couple months ago, hey, if we buy you a motorcycle, will you collect sand in Russia? Because now I'm that weird guy. Nobody else, they can't call anybody else, right? So I hope you guys think about that. What strange things that you've done that you kind of beat yourself up over, now can you turn that into a superpower? So I give talks to groups even in high school or middle school or younger ages to tell them, hey, if you don't fit in, good. Don't. Stay weird and work on that. Build that because you're going to be very, very important in these networks. I'm super affable, almost a blabbermouth. People that I know, people that I work with are like, wow, you don't have many secrets. You tell way too much. And then my best friends that I've had forever, like a friend of mine, Nikki, she's like, I used to hate that. You would tell everybody everything, but I've learned that you're networking always. Like if it's in my mind of something I'm trying to do, I'm talking about it. And that sailing trip was started because I bumped into some guy at Costco. He's like, what do you do? I was like, I want to sail. And he was the one that said, really? I know a guy. So I challenge you guys to be very open. And when you're meeting strangers, if it's on your mind of something you're trying to create or a network you're trying to forge, bring it up. And I have had so many of these things that were just like serendipitous, you know, like I bring it up and I'm talking to the one person that does it on earth. So please talk about stuff. And the funny thing is if you're sharing something to somebody that doesn't get it, nothing's lost, right? They don't get it. They walk away going, what a weirdo. But the chance of losing the connection with that rare person is lost if you don't talk about it often, and talk about it to anybody that'll listen, right? So my funny joke is I bump into strangers at parties or even at work as I'm helping people, and they go, what do you do? And I go, what do you got? And they're like, no, really, what do you do? And I go, no, really, what do you got? And they're like, no, but what do you do? And I'm like, anything, name it. And they'll quickly go, well, I'm working on this. I got this person that'll do that. I can do that, you know, like I'm instantly solving it. So I have basically what I call an elevator pitch for anything anybody throws at me. And so I can meet a stranger at Costco and I can nail it to the point where now we're best buddies. Him and I text every other day, sharing sailing information, the latest amazing video, the latest, and this guy that connected me is super big in both California and Washington. So just by bumping to him in Costco and telling him everything that was on my mind, I now have this new connection in sailing that covers the whole West Coast. So have these elevator pitches ready for any direction. You gotta be quick and you gotta be poignant to almost inspire these strangers, right? But the quick thing that I've learned in my affability is once you've done this, learn to shut your mouth, right? Shut your mouth quick. Because I wanted to build that instant connection to know that I'm friendly, but then I want to listen because the best leaders listen, right? A leadership is really a listening ship. So once he knew I was a fellow sailor, he talked my ear off. But that allowed me to basically learn as much as I can about him to figure out where that person can fit in my network. Does that make sense to everybody? And that's why I'll come out and I'll sound braggy when I'm talking to a stranger, but I'll learn to quickly go, okay, I can sense they're getting tired of hearing stuff. Everybody wants to talk. And the best people share really good information. And that's huge. And this is something I see all the time, especially because I give all these shop tours. if you guys come up to a situation, or you know you're gonna come up to a situation, prepare to ask good questions, right? Because I've had these tours where these kids will come in and either ask me amazing questions that show me they're thinking, they understand my processes, and they're on the next stage of design, to the point where I've had a kid that asked all these questions and apologized later. I said, no, 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 I wanna hire you. I've had so many times people offer me jobs because being inquisitive and just hammering these questions, showing the person that you're not only listening to them, but you're a step ahead of them, you will get networks forged instantly, and you'll get insane amount of job offers, right? And I can't stress that enough, because today, when I talk to college kids, it is so hard getting one question, right? But if there's somebody running the room with questions, it's like, let's talk. Like, it's amazing. So when I'm trying to kind of network, I call it my A game. And for me, I'm playful, right? I'm kind of a goofball. I'm bringing the good energy, like, hey, And that's why Mikey used to invite me to these crazy parties of meeting congressmen and witches and Russian mafia and all these crazy, because he was like, you're goofy, you're playful, and you got great stories. So being playful about everything, right, is pretty, it's what life's about, I think. And it allows things to just smoothly go to that next stage as you forge these networks. In order, and exude your best energy. And I mean, it's a purity as well, right? If you're coming to the table meeting somebody and you're like, man, this person doesn't look that interesting, or I'm sure, if you're already second guessing, they're gonna feel that, right? We're sensitive creatures. And so if you're exuding stuff where you're not showing your transparent intentions, right? I can watch somebody come into my space and I know when they're trying to exploit me, just with subtle intentions, right? And where we're at, sadly, professors are always trying to get the most out of students, right? So when a professor comes into my space, I can see those intentions walking right through the door. So I hope you guys, when you come into these new interactions, you have pure intentions. You're very honest. Like when I go up to a thing now, if I'm gonna talk to somebody and I know I have a big ask right out the gate, I'm like, look, this is very selfish. I know I'm selfish. I'm showing my true intention right away. Like, I need this favor right now. We don't even know each other. Please help me out, But when people come in, they try and get the foot in the door and then ask for more and more and more. Goodbye, We all know this pure intentions. So open and honest and upfront. And as Munger said, and I love this quote, you are building a seamless web of deserved trust, right? Like my network, I've pared down. You'll get your network tree to grow up so much and your time will get so limited, you're gonna start cutting off those dead branches, the dead weight. They're always pulling off your network. They're always asking for favors. And so you wanna build that by honesty, openness, pure intentions, doing the best you can to support that network, to grow that tree. And I like this thing, the KISS, the keep it simple, stupid. But I have a KISS towards networking, and it is know your needs, and in that elevator pitch, or when you're talking to your network, know exactly what you need and the simplest way to get that solution, right? Because if you go into somebody and you're like, and you can't even get your point across, they can't help you. But if I have a very clear, I need 6 bolts this size, I need them tomorrow, solved, right? So the simpler your ask, the clearer your ask, the better your network can show up and get you that. That's huge. That's very difficult for a lot of people to do. And then I say, if conducive, right? We don't want to talk too much, but if conducive, and that person in your network likes to hear a story, give them an applicable story, a challenge, something you did that was hard, but you solved it, where you showed up and you delivered. But most of the times, keep your mouth shut. Just listen. Listen to what they would need and how it would apply to your network. And then every time I'm talking to somebody, I'm like, oh, let me get your digits. Pull out the phone, get their phone contact, email, any info, and then in the description, I put exactly how I met that person. And if what they're doing is exciting, every time I see an Instagram or a link, I send it to them. Check this out. This will really inspire you. And right there, you're growing your network, right? They're like, this guy never asks for anything. And he's just giving me morsels of information. You build a love, and then they'll be begging to help you out. They'll be begging to make you part of their network. And then this is another weird one, but I always call this culture your inner psychic, right? And I know some people aren't people person, they have a hard time feeling people out, but I've learned a lot because of all the strange things I've thrown myself into, and I can just feel when somebody's not right. And Mikey also reminds me of this. He's like, you have an inner psychic. We all have that, right? But if you're gonna be an entrepreneur, or you're like me and you just want crazy experiences, you're gonna be in what I call mystic spaces a lot, right? Like you're not gonna have that normal 9-to-5 job. You're not gonna go to Target to get everything. Like I love auctions. I love dumpster diving. I love flipping real estate. I love flipping vehicles. There's mystic spaces where you'll find the gems. And I like to find gems of people too, right? I go to strange swap meets. I go to places where most people will shy away from. If I travel and it's paid for by the University of Hawaii, I purposely stay in the cheapest hotel in the dangerous neighborhood, and I do whatever I can to interact with as many people as I can. Because I love these mystic spaces. As an entrepreneur, if you're trying to get some seed money, right? You're gonna talk to a lot of people that have no clue what you're doing. That's a mystic space, right? You're trying to do something that's not a perfect formula. It's not going to Walmart and buying that banana. It's in a place where you don't know what's gonna land in front of your plate and you don't know how you're gonna navigate it, but it could have huge gains, or in my weirdness, could have huge losses that I wanna learn something from. Does that make sense? Cool. So I literally look at my network as a tree. And so everything I do, I'm like, is this growing my tree? And I'm gonna pull this analogy a lot for the rest of this talk. It's always like, is that gonna grow your tree? Or is that gonna slow down its growth? Is that gonna cut off a branch? Because there's a lot of times I'm like, oh, I don't want this to cut off a branch. So the big thing is you should ask yourself, what is your network? How are you gonna grow this network? What's it gonna pertain to? What's the thing you're trying to get your network to really leverage? What do you bring to the network? A lot of these networks are very one-to-one. I'll give you this, I want that. I'll give you an hour, I want my hourly rate. But the people that I showed you in my network, I consider almost all of them a dyad. Like when I call up my buddy Dave and we start inventing a prototype, it's 1 + 1 = 5. Like together we come up with amazing solutions that nobody else has thought of. So think about that. When you form your network, can you bring in these dyad relationships where you guys have this synergistic energy to spin it to the next level? And that's what I love. I have as many dyads in my close network as possible. Big thing, you should really know, where do you fit in this network, right? A lot of people think they could come in, I'm in a network, and then all of a sudden they have crazy asks, which we'll talk about in the next slide. But even these major founders, they've built these networks and now they're passing them on, right? It's a legacy now, and these networks now help the younger generations. They pull these kids into these networks. So consider that you might build a network that you're gonna pass for many generations. Could turn into a $1 billion industry, or could turn into my hope, just doing weird stuff and weird adventures. But just like growing a tree, right? You're gonna have these suckers, right? They're just pulling energy from your network. And if you're the one that keeps doing everything you can to grow that tree, at some point you're gonna be a leader and you're gonna have leaders that you're working with. And you're gonna be one of those people that have no time, but you're gonna have these opportunities just falling off you like water off a duck's back, right? I have some people that are literally like, just take this stuff. I don't have time for it. Like, you wanna develop this? Just get it off my plate. And so if you build the right network, you get these crazy cool opportunities. So just like a tree, right? You gotta plant the seed. You gotta plant as many seeds, you have to cast out. And I'm always doing that. With my network, I'm giving away ideas all the time. Hey, did you ever think about this? I can't do it. Do something with it. So I'm always planting the seeds. And the weird thing is generosity puts fertilizer on that tree. Like, I give away so much stuff, and I don't do it to get stuff back, but because I'm a dumpster diver, like I dove in a dumpster at Arizona, and the athletics department had thrown away all their basketball jerseys, all their shoes, the Air Jordans, all their football jerseys, the helmets and everything, and I literally had an entire university's worth of the best gear everybody wanted, and I just gave it away. And I had all these best friends that were now like, we gotta help Marty out. Like, he just gave us this and this and this. So generosity is huge. And I consider, if I don't get a reciprocation, that's such a cheap lesson. I can give away free stuff, and if I don't get anything back, I don't care. But that person was that sucker at the bottom of my tree, gone, right? And I've even warned people. I had a friend that I was giving him thousands of dollars of construction gear. He's like, what do you want? I said, nothing. But if I get a hint that you're taking advantage of me, you're that sucker. And there was one time he wanted some stuff. I said, how much do you need? I'll just give it to you. He said, no, I want as much as I can get. I was like, no, careful. You know. I was like, how much do you need? And he's like, as much as I can get. I was like, we're done. I'm sorry. And that was 10 years ago. Never talked to the guy again. Obvious sucker. And I hope you guys get to the point where you can start cutting off the suckers. This is a weird one. I took a training class at University of Arizona. It was on improv. I was like, what? Improv? If you think about improv, either on stage or on camera, yes and builds a connection, right? If you say no to something in improv, you've just killed the improv. If you look at any of these television shows that they're doing live television and they're building off of stories and being funny, nobody will ever say no. You throw something crazy into that story, it's yes and this thing happened. Oh yeah, and this happened, you know? So I remind myself, if you ever say no, what's gonna happen to your tree, right? Boom, you're chainsawing off a limb. And so in my network, if I'm trying to maintain that network and somebody says, oh, this is a hard ask, but I really need this tonight, we're doing it, you know, no sleep. Because I know in my network, if I called them and said, I hate to put this on you, but this just fell, I need help, I don't give no's. You know, and people that come to my office, they're always like, you struggle to say no. I'm like, right, because in improv and building a network, you don't want to say no. You know, there's been times where I had just developed this thing that I was doing and it fell on the worst date. And I was like, I can't say no because that whole tree's cut off or that whole limb is cut off or, you know. So very dangerous to say no. And this is a huge one with students. Just show up. Have you guys heard that? Just show up. I don't see much of that. And I see it getting worse and worse in college. Like I have so many students that schedule a meeting, they don't show up. Or they're late. Or they show up half shows, you know, or I call it the false start. Oh, I got this big idea and I need your help building it. Great, I need a drawing. Oh, tomorrow. Oh, next week. Oh, prune. Goodbye, sucker. And so if you guys are gonna build a network, you not only need to show up, no false starts, but you need to commit to finish, right? And you talk to these huge CEOs, and when they're hiring, they're like, what do you look for? And they're like, somebody that finishes, right? Don't just show it up, but you gotta finish. If you put your name on something, you get it done. You know, and I've worked with my most successful bosses, you know, I worked with some, you know, billion-dollar people, and it blew me away at how quickly they showed up and how quickly they got things done. And it was like they never dropped the ball. You know, I'd go in and say, we need these 12 things today. Done. Is that it? All right, great, talk to you later, you know? So if you want to be a leader, you got to show up and you got to commit and you got to finish. And that's hard to do. And the reason why I shared with you at the beginning of this, these crazy ideas I have, is that's forcing me to show up. So if you tell a story, you also have to be willing to say, okay, I told that story, I'm on the line now. So put yourself on the line to show up, commit, and actually finish. And that's huge. And you'll stand out and you'll build a strong network. This one comes from my childhood, and I think we all have cages in our childhood, right? My dad was a real estate salesman, hated it, just paid the bills. And I took college classes, and I thought, nah, I'll probably get into real estate. But I always had that little thing. I called it that something more, right? So something would pop up, and I'd be like, I'm probably going to sell real estate with my dad, but I'm going to take this class, and I'm going to talk to this person, because what if that something more could grow a new limb? And I'd take a class and I'd impress that professor and they'd say, you got to help me in this research project, or I want you part of this. So I challenge you guys to look at your childhood cages we've all had built on us, and then look within yourself, what is that little something more? What is that little echo that you could grow a network that gets you out of that cage that you've been raised in? Does that make sense to everybody? As you get older and you have responsibilities, you don't want that little voice sounding dead, right? You want that little voice getting larger, louder. And then something that Seth told me, who's that performance coach, he's like, you gotta always kill the inner snob, right? Families teach us to be snobs. Oh, I'm above that. Like, I'll never mop a floor. Or, I worked in the trades. One guy was like, I'll never touch drywall. Another guy was like, oh, I'll never do electrics. I'd do everything. And every time there was a construction crash, I was swamped. And the cabinet guy would be like, what are you doing? Oh, I'm doing drywall now. How are cabinets? Oh, no, there's no cabinets right now. Oh, drywall's cranking. So if you kill the snob, you'll always have in your network a new option, right? All right. Big risks, right? You just saw what I was doing in the past. Big risks. I accidentally bought that 6x6 while writing my Ph.D. It was on auction for $4,000. I got the high bid, and I had to go buy it. San Bernardino during rush hour, I drove that back to Tucson. I was like, just don't squish the little cars. But then again, I built that into a field vehicle, right? Bought it for $4,000. I was getting $10,000 a month to rent it out, and then I flipped it for $10,000 cash. So big risk, awesome reward, right? It was a blast using it, and it was a blast just getting cash back on that sale. And if you do a big risk, big reward, and you accomplish it, that's a track record, right? And so into your network, they go, man, this guy shoots for the stars, and he gets them, right? And that's why people will pull me into their networks, because they're like, we've never seen somebody do this kind of crazy logistics. You pull it off, we need that. We need you to be the lifeguard in Tibet when we're deep diving under frozen lakes. We need you to run 30 students by 6x6 because nobody else has that opportunity. So think about it, challenge yourself. What crazy things can you do? And in that, be fun. I also say be memorable. I bought this 1958 RV just so I could throw parties on top. And I'd throw a party with 30 of people of like a network. And they go, what's this rated for? I don't know. I thought it was 29, but we got 30 on it tonight. And so we had barbecues up there. We had a big flame pit. We had bonfires. It was amazing. And the stories got out. And they're like, if you get invited to a Marty party, do not say no. In fact, the professors that were on my committee for my PhD were like, hey, can we come to a Marty party? And they were bragging about it. So whatever you do, try and be memorable, right? If you're memorable enough, your network does all your marketing, right? The Marty party, it turned into its own essence. I didn't have to talk to anybody. But if I invited, everybody would show up because they wanted to see the bonfire. They wanted to have the barbecue. We actually had a crane in the back. I shouldn't tell you this, but this connected to a crane, and we would haul kegs up. And we'd party so hard nobody could get down. It was amazing. Good times. So this is the other slide I think you all should know, is you're building a network. You need to know everything in your network. This is a huge point, is you need to know the values of everybody in your network, the asks in the network, the connections. You need to know the values of their time, right? These leaders, you got to ask them something short, sweet, and quick. Something that they can just say, yes, talk to this person, get out. Down here, you can ask for more time, but they don't have the leverage, they don't have the power. But so many people even come into me with a huge ask. And I'll be like, do you know what you're asking? I couldn't do that in a year if I did that full time. Bye-bye. Don't do that to your leaders in your network, right? Know the value of their time, know the value of your ask, know the value of what you offer, right? If you really need to, you can pull leverage, but you can't pull that very often. You know, and I personally, if I have I have friendships, but I also have very kind of business-like connections in my network. I always stay a favor ahead. If I have people that I am just in the network for a business opportunity, I'm always one favor ahead. I want them to always go, he's never asked too much. And when I'm in a pinch, I always have a favor ahead. But that's only in the relationships where your network is just transactional, right? I have friends where they'll take a bullet for me, I'll take a bullet for them anytime. I'll give them 100 favors, and I'll just get through it. Are we over time? Okay, cool. So, and as I was saying, be generous, be the first to share, right? Generosity forges strength. Make sense to everybody? Cool. Any questions so far? I was hoping we'd have more discussions. You guys could go, oh, expand on that. Nothing yet? Yes?
Can you expand on the biggest critics?
Oh, that's huge. So 3 of my biggest people in my network, and pardon my French, but they're the biggest assholes I could find. Because so many people want to say, oh, that's so great. Oh, you're doing so well. Oh, I love it. They don't have any horse in the game. And they're going to make you walk away and think, I can really put this out there and I can make $1 million. And then you'll fall flat on your face. These critics are like, that's dumb. Why did you do that? You could do this way easier. Like, they don't care about offending you. You know, and even in the Lincoln movie, Lincoln hired his opponents, and that was why he was successful president, is he brought those critics in to say, I need the full picture. And the people that are gonna give me half the picture and fluff my ego, they're worthless. And so I have friends that some days I wanna punch them, but I also wanna hug them, because it's the only person that will tell you you're an idiot when you need to hear it, right? Like one of the guys in the network, I presented my PhD presentation, and the whole class was like, oh, you're gonna pass. And then everybody left, and he was like, that was embarrassing. I was like, out of 30 people, one person stood up and said, that was embarrassing. Your committee will fail you. You will not get your PhD. And I was like, why? And he goes, break it back. Let's go back to your first slide. And he tore me apart. Like, I cried that night. But it was only because of him that I graduated. And I've had business like that too, where I had this weird product, and the biggest critic is the one that straightened it out. That's huge. And I think we all want the buddy that makes us feel good and fuzzy inside. Like I've been telling you, I like to suffer. I like those people that challenge everything about me, because that's what's gonna make your network, your product, your business survive. Because when it comes, if you're just trying to make money and somebody can just make a choice and your thing looks a little meh, and your critic didn't tell you, hey, that's meh, I'm buying this thing right here. Like your network is worthless unless you have a lot of critics in that, right? And they're the ones that force you to forge, force you to go back, reiterate, make it better, make it stronger, or make yourself stronger. So that's huge. Thank you for making that up. Any other questions? No? This one's huge, especially as students, and I don't see enough of this. Self-mastery, right? Especially when you're working with the leaders at the top of your network. I will tell a student, you need this, this, and this. I'll see you next Monday. Or we'll work on it and we'll get it to point B. And then Monday comes and that student is at point B. And I'm like, what happened? You had the whole weekend. Oh, I thought we were gonna work on it together. I got 10 other things, bro, sorry, out. Like, and I tell you this because I took a TIG welding class. It's very hard to TIG weld. You're doing a bunch of, all feet and hands, you're doing stuff. I found on auction a $1,000 welder for $100. And my instructor came from Boeing. So he'd show me on a Monday what I needed to practice. I'd go home every night and I would practice. So by the next Monday class, I had aced that step. And by the end of our tutoring, he had a job ready for me at Boeing. I was like, I don't want to work at Boeing. I just want to make my own stuff. Or like, I took an ornithology course for birds and I bought a goose. And so the professor would tell us like bird biology, and then I would study my goose. And I'd come back and I'd tell my professor, hey, the airbags in a goose, I can see him rhythmically push air through the one-way lungs. And then he was begging for me to join his lab by the end of ornithology. Like, you guys need to push your self-mastery. If you have a direction that somebody has shown you, you need to get all the way to the end of that so that they can then point you in the next step. But so many students I see have had their hands held through high school, college, even professors. They then do grad school, then they get a professorship. They never had a real job. Self-mastery, and you will forge an unstoppable network, right? Because they'll know, you show this kid a little bit and he'll go to the dead end of that and he'll be ready to hit the ground running for the next step. That's huge. Any questions on that? Yes.
Sorry, this is like kind of related, but with like so many like projects
Mhm.
and like connections that you have, how do you like manage all of that?
So none of my stuff has a deadline, right? So like that catamaran, I really can only touch it nights and weekends when I have time. The crazy bush plane thing, that's gonna take me probably 5 years. Screenwriting, I have 3 scripts I'm working on. I have one that's basically ready to try and start finding producers and stuff. But in my life, I've learned when the time is right, for me and that thing, I can't sleep. You know, there's been times where I'll do a straight 3 overnighter, no sleep, no eat, because I've been inspired. So, and that's how I work. But some other people, you might need to schedule, you might need to divide your time and figure out, especially if you have a time deadline, right? Especially in classes, right? End of semester, that has to be done. But for me, these are my passion projects. And I have a day job. So I get to basically play on these when I want, but I also have to go to the day job. Does that make sense? That's a great question. So it's really gonna come down to what what you have to produce and when, and then basically back deconstruct that. Great question. But just with our tree analogy, Fastest growing tree, gardener wants to show it off, wants to splice it, turn it into many trees. Slowest tree, prune that sucker, right? So self-mastery. There's nothing now that you guys can't teach yourself off the internet, right? Like college is actually, and we're recording this so I can't say what I really feel. You guys can learn everything you're paying college to teach you now, right? The original model was that a professor in old library books found that information. You were paying professors to share information that was hard to get. You can learn everything now. You can self-master whatever you need. You might have to go buy a welder for $100 at an auction or whatever you need, do it cheaply just to get trained. But you guys are right now your slowest chain in the gang, right? You're your weakest link in how much you push yourself to teach yourself. But the old university model was this one professor found that one book that was in this one country, and then they took that information and taught it. We got the internet now. We got stuff like Khan University, you know. We got Yale and Harvard that have online stuff. So whatever you want to do, you could literally do it. And that's why these giant innovators, they drop out of college now, right? Look at Facebook. Look at all these other billion-dollar people. They realize, I can self-master. But you're here if you want to network and you want to work with others, right? College is amazing to learn how to communicate and learn how to work with others. So in that regards, it's money well spent. But I challenge you guys, and when I used to teach, I challenge all the students. If you really want to get good by challenging yourselves, challenge yourselves to 100 rejections in whatever field you have. Authors, this is an author that wrote this. You can scan the QR code and read the article. She challenged herself to get 100 rejection letters when she was trying to get an article bought. But the funny thing is Anne failed because she got more acceptances and she couldn't get to 100. But I challenge you guys in whatever field you want to do, try and get something you don't want, rejection, and get it at the point where it just right past. You don't even care. Like when I was pitching shows, I was pitching a few shows a month, and I was on Zoom, and I was, jumping around like a clown trying to sell my next show idea. And it took 100 ideas to get my next show. I don't do it anymore, though, because I got tired of the rejection. But this is a good challenge, right? Take that thing you're the most afraid of and whatever you're trying to become and make it your goal, right? Turn that thing around like Zen. And that's powerful because all of a sudden, the biggest hurdle people are having for their job or their career or their network turns into this strange, fun goal. And then it doesn't matter. Then you can fail at trying to be a failure. But a lot of ideas, right? Apply to be interns, volunteer, be in there. Denzel, I love his quote. If you hang around in a barbershop long enough, you're going to get a haircut, right? And I volunteered in wood shops, and then I was forced to build my own boat. Crazy. So put yourself in whatever scenario you want to be around. Create your own support groups, right? There's Meetup. There's all these apps that you can create your own support group to forge whatever you want in a network. Apply to whatever. Apply to jobs, internships, be present. Like there's so many times something might be going on, just go there. If there's a function, just show up. Just crash the party. Do whatever you can to be around. Post interests, right? There's so much social media. You can be like, hey, I'm trying to start this. Anybody else interested? Start a group around that interest. So there's so many ways. Check in frequently, like I was saying. If you get a new network that's a potential, check in. Hey, how you doing? Hey, this is cool. Hey, just letting you know I appreciate you. Find ways to add value to yourself. Offer information. People see me on the phone because I see something and I got 10 people I want to share it with. And then just do anything you can for easy exposure. The video I showed you is on my YouTube channel, and you click on Dr. Martin Pepper, and it's just showing off what I can do. So literally anybody that gets that link gets the full Marty tour. And video, I think, is powerful, right? You can show your personality. And so I made an easy exposure link. Make something for yourself like that. Like a business card / link, QR, share it, get it out there. But you got to make it real easy for them to get the essence of you. I think video is that. If you're not doing it in person, get them a video. And then finally, a lot of campuses, like these are the best thinkers and doers, right? We hire these professors, especially in engineering. They could be easily making double what they would do in industry. They're here because they want to teach. And so I challenge you guys, if you have any interests, do it while you're here. This is the last time you'll have the ability to literally rub elbows with some innovator professors or future, right? I say even future because a lot of your classmates, I have classmates, I'm like, that person did that. Man, I would have been nicer to them, you know? So figure out who's pushing the future and work with them to build this network. But I would drop into professors. This funny little story is, just out of curiosity, I wasn't into biology, but I took the hardest genetics course on my campus just because I thought it was cool. And I would go to the professor's office hours because nobody goes to professor's office hours. And I just chat with him. And he found out I was just taking it. He's like, are you nuts? And I'm like, yeah, people tell me that. And then by the end, he was trying to get me to join his research group just because it was so fascinating. And his point was, you're here to network, you're here to meet, you're here to learn to communicate. You're not here to get good grades. Nobody cares after you graduate what you got in this class or that class. But we do care about that network. And he really took that home to me. And this is something, are we doing this in December? I don't know if we were talking about doing a visualization thing like this. Yes, we are doing it. So I build my own vision boards and I visualize every single day. I won that race in swimming because every night when I was exhausted and I couldn't pick up my arms, I visualized my perfect swimming race. And when I did swim that race, I let it all go. I didn't even know I won it. And on live ESPN, I was counting the lanes to find out who won. Lane 3 won. What lane was I in, you know? So if you nail a visualization program and you have a vision board, you will accidentally create these things. I don't know if it's a spiritual mumbo jumbo or anything, but I do know that by visualizing with a vision board, I can recognize opportunity instantly. When I wanted to be a show host, I had a vision board, and somebody sent the weirdest email to our department. Do you want to be part of a non-fictional programming video series? You know, everybody deleted it like spam, and I was like, that's for show hosting. And I replied, I had a video, I had everything. And that's how I got that whole series on Discovery Channel. And it was only because of being open and knowing when that opportunity arises, even as weird as it came across in that email. All right, so now we got that sheet of paper. I got 2 challenges for you. Do we have time or are we running out of time? And this is we can take into the icebreaker. A few minutes. So we can take this to the icebreaker, but the thing I challenge you guys is if you don't have a mantra, I want you to work on it. Again, mine is experience everything. It's something that's gonna help float you through your career. What it is your biggest goal, you're gonna constantly, like something hard hits me, I'm like, oh, experience everything. Let's enjoy this. So hopefully you guys can work on a mantra. I'll be around in our icebreaker to talk about it. And then if you don't have a network, work on designing it. What kind of weirdos would you want to be part of this perfect network that you're going to build towards for whatever that is? Either entrepreneurialships, future careers, or whatever. Like me, I just want weird experiences. Sound good? And further on that, if you want me to kind of be a coach, a mentor, or somebody that holds you accountable for challenging goals, you can write your email and what your goal is, and I will check in. But again, if you come across like a sucker, so if you want somebody to hold you to say, hey, did you do that? Once a month, once a week, whatever, I'm down. I'm interested. Because I've come to these before, and I've had, because of my weird questions that were thoughtful, I've had people follow me out of here and go, you must know something. Will you coach me? So I do have people that come over to my office and I work on helping them do apps and development or products or stuff. So that's an option as well. But with that, I think that's all I have. Any other questions? Yes?
What are you gonna hunt with an air rifle?
Anything. The new air rifles are more powerful than a .22.
Oh, okay.
And they have a pump.
Oh.
Yeah.
Manual pump?
Yeah.
Oh, that's neat.
So that's a weird challenge. So I went to the Big Island. And the first thing I noticed, they have these parks that you can't camp in. I love camping. And I thought, how can you sleep in a park but not be in the park? You can float your tent. So I started building the catamaran. And I was like, wait a minute though. I want to go around the Big Island. Well, I can actually turn that into catamaran. So now I'm working on the carbon fiber dagger boards and the rudders. And I was like, wait a minute though, because there's some dangerous cliffs on, I think it's the southeast. Now I'm going to work on a titanium folding bike that can be submerged. The whole thing turns into a trailer. And my challenge is to circumnavigate the Big Island in steps.
Nice.
But the other crazy thing, because I like hardships, is I either have to spear the fish or hunt the chickens or whatever's available. But we'll see. I told you, now I have to do it, right? But I do stuff like that. Like I worked in the Caribbean, Turks and Caicos. And then I said, you know what? Nobody's ever hiked the entire archipelago. So I was like, one day, hey, I got a week. And I literally swam to the next island, hiked 2 uninhabited islands, almost died because I ran out of water. And then got picked up by a boat that helped get me around. And I wrote an article, and I sold the article for like $6,000. And so that got me thinking, do stuff that nobody does, make a video or an article. And then what's crazy is this was back with the wars we had in the Middle East. And there was a soldier that was just living because he read my article and he wanted to do the same trip. So then he came back, he did the same trip with a video crew. And he attributed it to my craziness. And so I was like, wow, that is so cool. Like that was the thing that kept him going to come back just to try and recreate such a weird trip. So I do that. That's my weird challenge. Experience everything. Good question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I guess this is back to your questions about building your network. There's a bullet point that said always be one favor up, or always have sort of always be the one ahead in terms of favors. How were you able, or could you give any examples of how you were able to give favors to people who maybe had more than you, or who had the higher?
That's a great question. How do you give favors to people that have more or don't need much, right? Anything's a favor, right? Information. The people that I know that are super busy, if I can share a link that helps them solve a problem or gives them some inspiration, that's it. But I mean, Brandon knows, if you come to my office, I have so much swag, like snacks, coffee, tea. I found a way to get multi-tools for free. So if you really impress me, you get a Leatherman wave, or and it's that craziness. I gave somebody something and now they give me boxes of these knives or multi-tools. And so be careful, because when you grow a network on generosity, it comes back tenfold. And then you're trying to just give more away and it keeps coming back. So that's the beautiful thing about it. But if you really know the people in your network, there's always something they're missing. And the people that don't have time don't have the time to find these links. And I've sent people links, and then these busy people complain, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I sent you that link last month. If you don't look at that link, I'm cutting you off. And they realize, wow, this guy has value. Because they'll look at the link and go, why didn't I get this last month? You did. You didn't open it. So value is anything, right? Value is checking in. Value is saying, I respect you. I know what you like. You're going to love this. And it's huge. Yeah.
How to overcome anxiety?
Doing these trips. I literally got so afraid I couldn't leave my little studio for a year. And I realized, I'm going to test it. A panic attack is afraid of something that you don't know what it is, right? So I was like, jumping off that airplane or whatever, I know what that is. And if you do it, you're no longer afraid of it. So if I get scared, I now run headfirst into that fire. So it's actually given me this weird superpower, right? And that's why I'm so grateful for having generalized anxiety and panic attacks, because not only has it forced me to be my purest me and show up and be fully honest, but I can also see people that are going through it. I've saved some lives, because it's like, you're me 10 years ago. Let's get you through this. So, great question. Yeah.
In a university, we try to get network with people, with professors.
Yeah.
But after graduation and we move to another stage, how can we maintain the network with professor and our classmates?
That's a great question. So again, it's whatever you can offer. Professors in geology love travel. Most of these guys were either rock climbers or expeditionists. And so when I do a crazy trip, I'm like, check this one out, and they love it. And professors love to see their impact, right? So when I was doing a Ph.D., one of the most important things they wanted to see is the success of their students. So when you have a personal success, hey, I just did this, and I have you to thank, and I want to thank you again. Gratitude. Just pass back gratitude. And I've had professors that, I graduated 11 years ago from my PhD, and I can send them something and they're like, hey, awesome, and you can tell you made their day. All you just have to do is update them. Yeah, great questions. But I think we're going to dive in, and I'm gonna be floating around, so if you guys have other questions or you wanna develop any of this further, I'll be around. Sound good? Awesome, thank you guys.